guys, and welcome to my channel if you're new, or welcome back if you've been here before. So fellow South Africans, I got your back. This video is about running. So as I am sure many of you have, I have a newfound love and obsession with running because it's literally all we can do between 6 and 9. So that's what inspired this video. So I've collabed with one of my very good friends. We've been friends for like 15 years, and he's going to give us some insight into the topic. So if you aren't following me on Instagram, I would recommend you do so, because I did ask my followers on Instagram if they had any questions that they'd like to ask Stephan specific to running, and then I added in some of my own questions that I've had for a long time as well. So here's my Instagram handle so that you can go and follow me, and also I'm sure you are going to like and enjoy this video, so please give the video a like and subscribe, because we're going to do a little bit of a series on this topic. So if you subscribe, then you can keep up to date, and then also leave a comment if there's anything that you learned from this, or if you have any more questions that we might not have covered in this video, but I'm sure we will have, because it's quite extensive. So yeah, here's Stephan to introduce himself.
Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Stephan. I'm going to be obviously telling you a little bit about running as a whole, just how you can improve your 5k time and perhaps run further than 5ks. A little bit about me. I was born in Stellenbosch, South Africa. I went to Porter's Gymnasium in high school, after which I got my undergraduate degree in BSc Sports Science at Stellenbosch University. After that, I went on to get my postgraduate degree in high performance sport, and I've recently started a business with my business partner Zach. The business name is Incrementum, or Incrementum Fitness. You can find all our socials linked below. Please give us a like, give us a follow, check it out. We've posted tons of workout videos as well as live workout streams that we have every week. So yeah, go have a look at it, and yeah, hopefully we can help you out with your fitness a little bit as well. So our business is mainly involved in corporate wellness as well as high school strength and conditioning. So what that means is, for us, it's a mobile strength and conditioning business. We take all the necessary equipment that they would need and run proper scientific based strength and conditioning sessions with first teams of high schools as well as the staff members at a corporate company.
Okay, so many of us in the Helderberg do park run, which is 5k run. So the basis of this video is going to be on a standard 5k run. So when we talk about a normal run, we're talking about a 5k. My first question to Stephan is, how do you know what is a good time for a 5k? Like personally, and just like in general, like how do you know what is a good time for a run?
So it's a little bit more complicated than that, unfortunately. It's not as easy as punching in your weight and height and then having a perfect 5k time that you should work towards. It's a very personal thing, and it's something that unfortunately I can't give you a straight answer on. The biggest problem that a lot of people have is the discrepancy between their cardiovascular fitness and then their muscular strength or readiness for the task. So what a lot of people will do is they will go for a run and they'll feel, oh, I feel good, I'm not out of breath, I can definitely run further. But what they don't realize is that their muscles have perhaps not developed to that distance. When you get to a point where you can run a set distance comfortably without your heart rate going into the end zone, so above 170 beats per minute, if you can run the whole run keeping your heart rate fairly steady and low, then that to me indicates that your body is ready to push up the intensity. Another thing to look at is the feeling of delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS as known. And this is that feeling you get of stiffness the next day or two after you've gone for a run. Your body is run down and hurts, and muscles are obviously have been damaged and busy being repaired. When that feeling stops showing up after a run, it's also a good indication that your body is developed muscularly to carry on and do a further run, a higher intensity run.
Okay, so now that we know how to establish our normal time, or what our normal 5k time should be, how can we better that? And how can we increase our fitness to get an even better normal time in the future?
To run a 5k distance, if you're a very fit person already, then pushing 10 or 15 kilometers is not necessarily going to directly influence your 5 kilometer time. But if you are an unfit person, then the base stamina and the base endurance you can gain from running longer 10-kilometer runs is going to benefit your 5-kilometer time, because the easier and more consistently you can run a 10-kilometer, the easier it is to improve your pace on a 5-kilometer. One should always try and work in one of these, they call it LSD runs or long slow distance runs, into your workout. You should always be running one longer run where your pace will be slightly slower than your 5K pace, and your distance obviously slightly more than the 5-kilometer pace, to just build up that endurance and that base stamina that you would need. But then the other focus is to go run faster than your 5K pace. So you want to be running a 3-kilometer, or even split it up into intervals of 1-kilometer bouts with a rest in between, where you're pushing a pace that's faster than your 5K pace. At the end of the day, if you want to improve your time on your 5-kilometer, you need to get your body used to running at the pace that you want to be running. So that involves going for shorter runs and pushing up that pace and getting to eventually being able to run the 5K faster.
So sometimes when I'm lazy, then I'll just run, I won't push it. I'll just do like a gradual run and then try and save it in the last couple 100 meters. So, and then, So what are your views on like sprinting in the last couple 100 meters of your run?
Okay, despite what you may think, pushing for that last little sprint at the end of the run is actually a very possible thing to do, and our bodies actually have a mechanism that governs this whole thing, and it's referred to as the central governor theory. And what that basically refers to is the fact that our body is constantly, or our brain rather, is constantly working out the exact amount of energy or amount of store of energy that we have left to complete a certain task or run for this matter. So when you're running, your pace will often adjust according to what your brain is telling you, how much energy you actually have left for the run. But the nice thing about this is that your body never really uses your full tank of petrol. So by the time you get to the end of the run, you always have a little bit of fuel left over in the tank. So being able to sprint that last 100 meters of the run is actually a very possible thing to do. And that is why you can see athletes on the TV that at the end of their events are half dead, but they can still push that last 100 meters faster than any of the other 100 meters they did before that. That being said though, whether it contributes to fitness is maybe a bit of a stretch, but what it does help with is that mental toughness to be able to push yourself when you are already tired, and often that mental toughness is more important than your fitness level at the end of a run.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm very happy with that answer. So it turns out I'm not lazy, I just have mental toughness. So good to know. Okay, so tell me about interval running, interval sprints, hill sprints, things like that.
Interval sprints are actually something that's a bit of a personal favorite of mine. I think everyone has heard of the term HIIT training or high intensity interval training. These interval sprints are a very quick way and fast way to push up your fitness in a run, but they do also involve pushing your body a little harder than it's used to. A good way of doing this is what they also refer to as a fartlek run. A run where you have sections of the run where you are doing it at a slower, more comfortable pace, and then intervals where you are running at a sprint or at a much faster pace. To run a 5 kilometer in this HIIT style way allows for more cardiovascular adaptation, it allows for more muscular adaptation than your traditional low intensity, longer distance exercise sessions. So yeah, as I say, I'm a very big fan of interval training, and I think it has a big space for helping you improve your fitness. Whether or not hill running is beneficial towards your fitness or your cardiovascular fitness is slightly debated. However, the muscle adaptations that you can gain from hill running are something that are very difficult to simulate on a flat run. This basically just entails the fact that when you are on an incline or a decline, you're recruiting muscles that would usually be either dormant or not as active during a flat run. Hill sprints, for example, are a great way to work on your leg strength and your leg power. However, hill running does also come with its own risk, because especially with downhill running, it can be very taxing on your knee and especially on your ankle joints, as well as your Achilles tendon and so forth. It's a very important tool in improving your joint strength as well, because yes, it's a risk for joint injury, but at the same time, it therefore is strengthening your joints. So done in moderation, I think hill training is actually a great way to improve your muscle strength and power. But towards fitness, it can be debated that it's not as, or not more or less effective than a normal flat run. Also in a controlled environment where you're not sprinting down a 90-degree hill type of thing, you know?
Okay, so now switching gears a little bit, how important is form, like, really? Because I'm not a professional athlete, so I don't run at 100% capacity basically ever. But also, like we've established before, I'm also lazy. And then also, I know that there are things on my form that I can work on, so when I make a conscious effort to work on them, I'm stiff for like a week afterwards. So half the time I don't even bother anyway.
Okay, well, from a biomechanical point of view, yes, form is probably the most important thing when it comes to any movement or any exercise or any training of any sort. But correct form can help decrease the injury risk, both acute and chronic injury. It can help improve your performance, as well as just help you be a more efficient runner in the long run. The best form, technically speaking, is a nice midfoot strike with forward toe propulsion. This coupled with a nice upright posture with a slight forward lean out of the hips is seen to be the most efficient form, is seen to be the most highest performing running gait. However, that is very dependent on the person. Some people are heel strike runners, some people are toe strike. So correcting that form can often be a bit of a challenging process, but everyone can benefit from better form. Even the most elite athletes are always looking to improve their form, are always looking what's the next thing they can do to tweak that run, to change the style, and that's life, unfortunately. And I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is that bad form doesn't affect you now. So often someone will say, what does it matter if I'm running slightly wrong? I don't feel pain. It shouldn't be a problem. The problem is bad form only shows up much later in life when you start having problems with your hips and your knees and your ankle. And I can promise you that a 50-year-old you is going to thank you now if you can correct your form early on in life already. But as I've said, the process is difficult, and what I recommend is usually tweaking something small, doing slight differences over weeks, even months, so that your body not only can get used to the fact that you're changing your whole running dynamic, but also that it can become more of a permanent change instead of, like you say, do it once and then you have stiff calves for a week.
And then we can all deal with a bit of stiffness, because then you know you worked hard and it was kind of worth it. But there's a big difference between stiffness and injury. So like what are the best things to do to avoid like long-term actual injury that's like bad for you?
Simply put, without expanding, I think the best tips for avoiding injury is warm up, cool down, and most importantly, just listen to your body. I think so many people are so quick to let other things tell them what they should be doing to avoid injury, when actually our body is often the best predictor of what is wrong, is just by listening to your body. Just like a car engine performs better when it's warmed up, so our muscles also perform better when they've warmed up. However, as most people do, when the coach says, cool, it's time to warm up, we all go and stand in a circle and we do a couple of stretches and then we say we're ready to go. This is probably the biggest lie in the world of sport. Static is in one spot, dynamic is moving around, and a warm-up should never be static. A warm-up is always a dynamic thing. A warm-up should consist of movements that are as close to the exercise that you are going to be doing. So high knees, butt kicks, kick-ups, walking lunges, those exercises are all great movements to warm up for running because they entail movements that are similar to running. And like I've said as well, it should never be static. A warm-up should be up and down, it should be jumping, it should be moving about, because your muscles are literally getting ready to do the movement. So by stretching them in one place, you're telling your muscle, okay, time to relax, we're cooling down now, which is why a cool down, static stretching, no problem. If your muscles have shortened during your exercise, this just helps to lengthen them out again, get them back to a nice neutral position. It helps for waste removal and all those things as well. I think cool down is one of the things that 99% of people don't do, but it can help so much with injury prevention as well as just overall feeling better the next day.
Okay, so let's talk about running shoes. How important is finding the correct tacky for you?
Then the difference between a proper running shoe and a trainer is very important. I think trainers are often marketed as these great looking shoes. They often look much nicer than a running shoe. They often suit your budget a little bit better than a running shoe. But the fact is that trainers or lifestyle shoes are basically glorified sneakers. They are shoes that look good in the gym but don't actually provide much support, don't provide much stability for runs. Often a bad shoe, or not a bad shoe, but a shoe that isn't suited for you can be a bad shoe. Even if it is not a bad shoe. I know so many people who have bought really nice, high quality, top of the range shoes and hate it after a week. And that's got nothing to do with the shoe, it's because the shoe isn't suited to them. For example, Sportsman's Warehouse has a great in-house gait analysis where they put you on the treadmill, they check out your running stance, they see if you've got any abnormalities or any weaknesses, then they give a shoe that they recommend and they have you run on the treadmill again, and using the slow-mo video they can adjust and pick a shoe according to the abnormalities that you have. Starters, most shoes are divided up into 3 categories: low, medium and high mileage shoes. This basically just means that if you're a runner that's never going to run more than 5 kilometers, then a low mileage shoe is perfectly fine for you and you won't have any problems. But if you are pushing to do 10, 15 half marathons, then you do need to look at more of a high mileage shoe. I think that a good pair of running shoes can last years without a problem. But what often happens is the sole starts giving way, the sole starts sagging or starts losing support. So the biggest thing to look for is if your running shoes are no longer as comfortable as the day you started wearing them, then start looking at why that is. Often it is just the sole that has collapsed a little bit, which is a fairly easy fix. You can go out to any sports store and you can buy yourself proper soles, replace the sole of your shoe, and that can easily create a little bit more longevity with your running shoes. Oh, and as for tying laces, that is purely a personal preference. I think a shoe, the most important thing to remember is a running shoe should be snug and comfortable, but provide support about a finger's width, about a thumb's width between the toes and the front of the shoe is always a general rule for the size.
And now on the opposite of shoes, what are your views on running barefoot? And I mean, us living here so close to the beach, do you recommend beach running and barefoot running? And is it a good thing? Should we be doing it?
Try again. This is actually one of my favorite topics. Barefoot running is something that I'm a big supporter of. I think it's something that a lot of people should give a try to, should try and experience more. I know unfortunately in the modern world of today, we've been taught to run with shoes because there's not very many environments that we can run barefoot comfortably. Most of our feet have become soft and weak because we always run in shoes or always are wearing shoes. So I think the beach is one of those few places where you can still go run barefoot, and scientifically barefoot running is very good for you. It's very good for your joints, it's very good for your muscles. It is, after all, our natural running equipment. You know, before everyone had nice fancy shoes to wear, they ran barefoot. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's definitely not detrimental to you. If anything, it's very beneficial. As for running on the sand, that's a whole nother thing. Most people will run in the sand and they will have stiff this and stiff that for the next week. So you will have stiff muscles. But what they don't mention is that running on the sand is actually very good for your joints because there's a lot less ground contact force. The sand has a lot more give, if I can put it that way. Yes, you will feel a little bit more muscle soreness, and that's just due to the increased friction, the increased resistance from the sand. So your muscles are literally having to work harder with every stride because you're working against the sand. As your muscles get stronger because they're used to now running on a road where there is a little bit less resistance, and all of a sudden you've put them on the sand where they're having to work twice as hard to push out the same pace, and all of a sudden you realize your pace is dropping on the sand because your muscles get tired quicker. So in my opinion, running on the beach is great. I think it should be done in moderation, because another thing to mention is obviously the fact that running on the sand does pose certain injury risks. The instability of the sand is something that not only is the biggest benefit, but it's also the biggest risk, because this instability that the sand has is great to work those stabilizer muscles. It's great to work on the joints, getting used to uneven terrain. It's great on working the muscles a little bit harder than they are used to on the road. Can quite easily twist an ankle, land skew, and so forth. And it should be done to the capacity that your body allows as well. If you run 1 kilometer on the sand and you're in pain, maybe move it to the road. It's all about, like I've said in the previous question as well, listening to your body.
Okay, so I have come to the conclusion that after following your tips for the first couple of weeks, I am going to be very stiff. So what are your tips on recovery?
Recovery is probably one of the biggest debates in the world of sports science. It's something that every Tom, Dick and Harry has a different opinion on. It's something that so many people get misled by, because everywhere you look there's some gizmo or gadget or some miracle cream or ointment that's going to magically make all your muscle pain go away. And I think recovery is something that is so misunderstood by a lot of people, because they fall into the trap of these fads that are just advertised as the next great thing. Proper recovery takes time. Proper recovery is rest. Rest is always and will always be the best recovery for your muscles, for a run, for a joint. Give it time. So recovery is something you need to research for yourself. It's something that if you hear about something, you should go and read up about it, proper scientific journals or articles, because there are so many fake things out there regarding recovery. There's a bit of a rule in the sports science world that if you hear about a new type of recovery, it's probably not going to work. Ice baths have been a big controversial thing at the moment. Ice baths have actually been, some articles are even showing now that they can be detrimental towards recovery, that they can actually slow down the recovery process. And yet ice baths have been something that people have just accepted to be a great recovery tool. So personally, I'm a qualified massage therapist as well. So personally for me, I find massage or foam rolling to be one of the most effective forms of recovery. I think just from a side of waste removal, from a side of relaxation, from a side of making the muscles pliable again, I think any form of massage, or like I say, foam rolling, or using a myofascial release ball, things like that where you physically work the muscle, I find are great recovery tools. And then rest, and eating a proper good high protein meal after a day of exercise is the best recovery you can give your body, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, a cramp or a stitch comes down to your body is lacking something, whether that be energy, whether that be a buildup of waste products, whether there be electrolytes missing or substrates missing. That is the cause of a cramp, but there's no one thing. Often people will get a cramp on a run and their first reaction is put the leg up on a wall and stretch. But often the muscle shortening is just the effect of the cramp, it's not the cause. So by stretching out the muscle, it gives you a little bit of temporary relief, but the cause of that cramp is not actually a shortened muscle. It's more often than not dehydration, or like I said, lack of electrolytes, lack of substrates, energy loss, things like that. It can be a combination of all of them, it can be one of them. It's something that is unfortunately not very well researched, and something that's not very well understood at this time. But as a rule, if you're stitching, usually when I get a stitch, I just put my hands up in the air, focus a bit more on my breathing, try get myself to calm down a bit. As for a cramp, your best bet is to rehydrate, get those electrolytes back in, and maybe just take it a bit slower. Your body is trying to tell you something when you're cramping.
Okay, so now that I know how to warm up, how to improve my form, and all the little tips and tricks around the run, let's talk about the actual run and planning like a running schedule.
Let's for argument's sake assume that you go for 3 runs a week, so that gives you 3 training sessions. If you're looking at pushing up your 5k time, each of these runs should have a different focus. For a longer, slow distance run, working from 5k, so you should be going for a nice slow 10k run, nice comfortable pace. This run should be about 20 to 30% slower than your 5k pace. It's there to build up endurance, it's there to build up stamina, Then your second run, a HIIT session, a interval sprinting, a fartlek run, something where you're pushing pace. Either running 3 to 4 1 kilometer bouts with a 2 to 3 minute rest in between, and then going for another 1 kilometer, where those 1 kilometers you push pace, you just run as fast as you can for that 1 kilometer, where the focus of the run is to improve your pace. So this run should typically be 20 to 30% faster than your 5 kilometer time. And then lastly, as the third session, so a nice 5 to 6 kilometer run, running at or even a little bit faster than your 5 kilometer pace. And then this run can be used as your tracking run to see, are you improving? Are you more comfortable on the 5K? Are you less comfortable? Because if pushing your 5K time to get that new PB is the goal, then pace is the thing you need to work on. So, obviously, if you're going for more than 3 runs a week, then great, then that's awesome. But these 3 sessions should be a basic guideline to structure your runs around. Cool. So just in closing from my side, thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for letting me share a little bit of my knowledge as well as research that I found on certain running things. It's important to know what your goals are, what you're focused on, how to get there. And then most importantly, like I've mentioned a few times through the video, is listen to your body. Your body can tell you more than what I can tell you. So yeah. But thank you so much for having me, and I hope that everyone has a great day and has a great run later.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Stephan, and thanks for everyone for submitting your questions. And stay tuned for the next video that's coming up. It's going to be a good one.